When it comes to Japanese zombie movies, the first thing that comes to mind for most people is I Am a Hero. However, the film I want to talk about today, Dead Man Inferno, may not be as well known, but it's no less exciting than the former. The story takes place on a remote island, where a highly infectious flu virus suddenly breaks out. The hospital is already overcrowded, and the doctors are at a loss as to how to deal with the situation. Kojima sees an opportunity here and manages to obtain a special drug of unknown origin that, when taken by infected individuals, actually seems to work. Kojima profits handsomely as a result, but when he returns home, Kojima himself becomes infected. In a panic, he injects himself with the drug. Unbeknownst to he, the potent drug did work, but when combined with the virus, it produced a terrible side effect and Kojima collapsed on the sofa foaming at the mouth not long after the injection. Kojima's girlfriend, terrified, calls the only doctor on the island, Yura. Unfortunately, he was too late. Kojima had already died. The woman cries out as she looks at her dead boyfriend, but the next second, Kojima suddenly turns into a zombie. After the zombie jumped off the couch and attacked Yura, Kojima's girlfriend picked up a wooden stick and struck the zombie with all her might. They thought they had defeated the zombie, but the damage was merely superficial. The zombie suddenly rose again and tackled the woman to the ground, biting her arm. This terrifying scene caused Yura to panic. And he fled the scene on his bicycle. However, he soon stopped to catch his breath and confirm what had just happened. Yura was almost caught by the pursuing zombie while riding his bicycle, but fortunately, he encountered a police officer while fleeing. He shouted to the officer to shoot the zombie chasing him, but the officer didn't believe Yura and refused to turn around. By the time the officer realized what was happening, it was too late. As the officer fell to the ground, passers-by were also infected one by one. Yura had no choice but to continue riding his bike to escape. Soon it's night time, as two runaway girls are causing trouble on the island and young policeman Omura is interrogating them. Unexpectedly, at that moment, Yura rode his bicycle to the police station, followed closely by the old police officer who had turned into a zombie. Before Yura could explain the situation, and the zombie pounced, he quickly pushed the zombie away and shouted for Omura to shoot. Looking at the old cop in terror, Omura hastily pulled the trigger. However, the gunshot attracted even more zombies, and chaos ensued. After putting up a fierce resistance, they managed to escape the zombie attack. Unfortunately, the same could not be said for the other people on the island. When the nurse at the hospital heard knocking at the door, she thought it was Yura returning. However, when she opened the door, the outside is already full of dense zombies. The zombies broke in and infected one of the nurses who was trying to escape. Meanwhile, the entire island had turned into a slaughterhouse of zombies. In just one night, most of the island's residents had become zombies. Yura they fled overnight and finally found a safe place. However, a girl named Mio got separated from them on the way. Mio's best friend, Ri, wanted to rescue her, but Yura stopped her because of the danger outside. Their argument woke up Otsuka, who was sleeping inside the house, and he realized what had happened outside. Suddenly, a noise outside attracted all the zombies, but they were moving very slowly. Yura noticed that these zombies were different. The ones infected by injecting the drug were much faster, but the ones infected by bites were slower. Most of the zombies on the island were of the latter type, but Ri didn't want to listen to Yura's crap. She just wanted to rescue Mio. At her request, the team prepared to go rescue Mio. Meanwhile, because of Mio's runaway, her parents also brought friends to the island to look for her. Unexpectedly, as soon as they entered the village, they noticed an elderly woman passing by who didn't seem right. Before they could react, the villager who turned into a zombie lunged towards Shingo. Fujiki managed to separate the zombie and landed a hard punch to its face, but it didn't seem to hurt the zombie. The group panicked until Yura and his team happened to pass by and Omura quickly shot and killed the zombie. Unfortunately, the gunshot also attracted a swarm of zombies, and they had to take refuge in a nearby room. Right now, the gang all have the same goal, and that is to find Mio, who has wandered off. Omura tried to call for help, but when the caller heard that there was a zombie virus outbreak, he thought it was a prank and hung up. With no other options, they had to figure out a way to escape. Meanwhile, on the other side of the island, a few gangsters arrived with the intention of finding Kojima, the first person to mutate. Kojima was also a member of their gang, and the super drug he was selling was stolen from them. They planned to find Kojima and teach him a lesson. As soon as they arrived on the island, a zombie sprinted towards their vehicle and collided with it. At first, they thought it was a scam, but when they got out of the car, they witnessed a horrifying sight. The woman who was knocked off her feet and hands is clearly crippled, yet she can still walk freely. Masayoshi quickly realized that something was amiss and opened fire on the zombie until it finally fell to the ground. Before they knew it, they saw countless zombies crawling out of the bus that had crashed. So they raised their guns and fired, but after firing a few shots, they found that they had little effect, so they turned around and prepared to run away. Before Nakatsu could get into the car, he was entangled in the zombie and fell down with it in the confusion. Fortunately, there was no serious injury. One zombie was impaled by a tree branch, and Nakatsu promptly used his knife to eliminate another zombie as he got up. He then proceeded to the village alone. Despite Nakatsu's seemingly dim-witted appearance, he was a formidable fighter with a slight obsession with women. When Nakatsu saw the male zombie, he swiftly killed it with a single stroke of his knife. As for the female zombie, he promptly picked it up and carried it into a nearby house, but just as he was about to do something about it, he saw the mutated Kojima chasing a villager. Nakatsu saves the villagers and incidentally kills the culprit, Kojima. Nakatsu couldn't wait to enter the house and have relations with the zombie, whose figure looked quite enticing, whose figure looked quite attractive, but before he could start, the zombie bit off his ear. In the next moment, even more zombies rushed in, infecting the villager who had just been saved as well. Meanwhile, Masayoshi and his man, who had split up, managed to secure a new truck and were headed for the dock to escape the island. In the meantime, the group trapped inside quickly gathered all the weapons they could find and headed outside to face the zombie horde head-on. With their weapons, they fought the zombies with ease, but suddenly, a zombie dropped from the sky, and Yura instinctively pulled the trigger. While he successfully took out the zombie, it also attracted even more zombies to their location. The situation quickly turned against them. Outnumbered, they had no choice but to run away. Tatsuya and Makiko got separated from the group and, while running away, the couple meet a familiar figure, and sure enough, it's their daughter Mio, only long since turned into a zombie. Tatsuya can't bear to do this to his daughter. If it weren't for his imprisonment and his failure to protect her, she wouldn't be in this state. Guilty, Tatsuya doesn't choose to fight back and decides to become a zombie with his daughter. After taking out a few zombies, Tatsuya reached his daughter's side. It had been 10 years since he last saw her, and now they were reunited in such a way. Tatsuya couldn't bring himself to harm his daughter. If only he hadn't been incarcerated and could have protected her, she wouldn't have ended up like this. Overwhelmed with guilt, Tatsuya chose not to resist and decided to turn into a zombie with his daughter. Makiko, on the other hand, was bitten by a zombie in the onslaught. The family of 3 hugged each other tightly. Just then, Shingo and Fujiki finally arrived, but it was too late. Tatsuya wants Shingo to kill them before they fully mutate. With no other choice, Shingo granted Tatsuya's request, and with a few shots, the family lay dead on the ground. The situation for the others wasn't any better. Omura and Ri were surrounded by a large group of zombies. To protect Ri, Omura stood in front of her but was bitten by the zombies. Before he died, Omura fulfilled his 2 dreams to shoot his gun without restraint and to hold a female student in his arms. He died without any regrets. Before he fully turned, Omura did one last thing for Ri. He led all the zombies away and sacrificed himself. Ri managed to escape and found the rest of the group. Their only goal now was to reach the dock and leave the island, but when they arrived, they found that there were many zombies there too. Suddenly, a truck stopped in front of them, and Masayoshi and his men got out. Learning that they were planning to leave by boat, Masayoshi offered to team up with them, but since Shingo they are stuck with the zombies, they have to go and save them first. However, the brutal Masayoshi could not agree, and without saying a word, he shot Yura in the thigh and used Ri as a threat. Yura had no choice but to hand over the keys to the boat. Masayoshi took the key and left, leaving Yura and the others surrounded by zombies. In the chaos, Yura saw his ex-girlfriend and the nurse he had feelings for, both now turned into zombies. He didn't shoot them and chose to embrace them instead. Happy for the chance to hold both his ex and current girlfriend, Yura turned into a zombie happily. Ri and the others quickly moved forward to pull the zombies away, but Masayoshi shot and hit Otsuka. They discovered that the key was fake. While Masayoshi is fighting the zombies, Ri rushed to the car with the injured Otsuka and, with Yura and his girlfriends covering, the two managed to escape in the car and incidentally save Shingo and Fujiki. But Masayoshi was still chasing them and trying to get the real boat key. Looking at Shingo standing in the trunk of the car, Masayoshi resolutely pulled the trigger, but Shingo fought back and broke the windshield. Asayoshi, they crawled out of the car in a mess, and the little brother was pounced on by the pursuing zombies. Masayoshi had managed to climb into the car, only to find that he had run out of ammunition, so he pulled out his machete and fought Shingo. After a few rounds, it was Shingo who had the better of the two, cutting Masayoshi down with a single slash. The zombies that followed instantly overwhelmed him. However, the number of zombies was too great, and in order to cover the escape of the others, Shingo, he jumped out of the van and drove his motorbike, twisting the throttle to lure all the zombies away from the van. With no way to escape, Shingo had no choice but to fight to the death. But after finishing off a few zombies, Shingo was faced with a steady stream of corpses, finally gives up the fight. But just as Shingo was about to make his move, the zombies suddenly stop moving, and it turns out that Fujiki, they have come to his rescue in their boat. The loud singing from the boat successfully distracts the zombies, and they jump into the sea like a dumpling. Restricted speed of movement for zombies in the sea. A few people take the opportunity to save Shingo together. They leave the dreaded island. However, the zombie crisis doesn't end there, as the zombies jump into the sea and swim all the way to Tokyo.